For being the protagonist of one of the greatest animated shows of all time, Aang's story has always been overshadowed by Zuko. Don't get me wrong, his redemption is lovely and will always be one of the best. However, Aang's maturity is still beautiful, not only in the elements he learns to bend, but in the inner wisdom he gains along the way. Let's take a deeper look, shall we? Aang begins his journey as a carefree kid who aims to have fun.
Will you go penguin sledding with me?
Wanting to make up for lost time of being stuck in an iceberg for 100 years. I mean, I don't blame him. Kids should have a moment to be a kid before everything starts to get serious. He's innocent and unaware of the horrific things the Fire Nation has done in his absence. All of this changes when he revisits his old home at the Southern Air Temple, where he learns the truth of what happened to the Air Nation. At this moment, his innocence is gone, lost to war. On top of this, he has a set path of being the Avatar, whose job it is to find balance within the world. Despite all of Aang's misfortune, he heeds Master Gyatso's advice.
We can't concern ourselves with what was, we must act on what is.
The statement helps him stay grounded and mindful in the present, continuing to have a happy outlook on life, helping people find something to hope for again. With all of the people he meets along his journey to the Northern Water Tribe, it adds more weight onto his shoulders, not wanting innocent lives harmed due to his actions, like when he sees Kyoshi Island burn. No one on that island deserves to get hurt. Instead of fighting and standing his ground, Team Avatar must run, making Aang relive his greatest fear, not being there to help people in need. It happens when the Fire Nation attacks the Southern Air Temple, and then again when Zuko and his army burn Kyoshi Island. Aang never wants to feel defenseless or see people suffer, but more often than not, his fears are what make him hesitant in this stage, feeling a sense of guilt weighing down on him for his past failures. Then we have the other side of the coin with people like Jet, who inflict pain on others for what happened in the past. Aang still shows mercy, not wanting to fight him, only using airbending to defend himself. This fighting style isn't an isolated event. More often than not, Aang evades his enemies, using his agility to quickly dodge enemies' attacks, only throwing gusts of air as a last resort. His first instinct is to talk through a problem first and try to avoid fighting altogether. Zuko and Zhao are both hotheads and lead more with their fists than with their brains. The only time Aang does hit first is when he loses control of his emotions, causing him to be forced into the Avatar state, which is subconsciously trying to protect him from more trauma. The Avatar state is something he doesn't understand and doesn't choose to use unless enraged. As for bending, Aang learns how to use water and fire. Granted, he only uses fire in one episode, but he still is able to produce a flame. When it comes to water bending, he has a raw talent for it, but he still isn't as developed as Katara. Despite this, the Way of the Water, nope, we're not talking about that movie. Waterbending brings the clarity he's been looking for, learning the ways of determination and passion beyond the waves. Despite what airbending is all about, going with the wind and finding freedom with your thoughts and movements. That sense of direction that Aang was lacking at the beginning is now found after he develops his skills with water. Fire, on the other hand, sounds fun and exciting. You're creating life when you produce a flame. However, it's still dangerous if not properly controlled or taken seriously. At this moment in time, Aang isn't ready to take on the responsibility. The Avatar is hesitant in his actions, eager to learn but impulsive. That immaturity is what leads him to burn Katara, teaching him how a lack of control can hurt the ones he loves. At the end of Book 1, he saves the day and helps aid in protecting the Northern Water Tribe from the Fire Nation attack, helping build some confidence in winning this war and his duties to protect the world. Book 2 sees Aang step away from his childlike wonder and mischievous tendencies, in favor of a more responsible and understanding guy. One of the reasons for this change is the inclusion of Toph. She's the exact opposite of our protagonist. She's blunt and ready to fight whenever the need arises.
You think you're so tough? Why don't you come up here so I can smack that grin off your face?
Her rocky attitude is what makes her the perfect earthbending teacher for Aang, teaching him to be more stable and direct in his fighting and decision making, which is needed when you have a foe like Azula, who is sharp and decisive. In Book 1, Aang's opponents were Zhao and Zuko, showcasing a lack of emotional control that helps him learn to stay cool and calm under pressure. In Book 2, Azula reinforces Toph's lesson by forcing him into a position to act. He can no longer be passive or talk his way out of an encounter with Azula. Either he fights or he's toast. Becoming more physical isn't the only thing that the Avatar learns. After losing control of the Avatar state in the Northern Water Tribe, Aang is afraid of using it, not knowing how to control such power and afraid of what he might become. Struggling to enter the state after Earth General Fong insists he uses it, only entering it after seeing Katara become swallowed up by the earth. That is brutal. This guy is kind of the worst.
Anybody got a problem with that?
The Avatar state isn't all it's cracked up to be. Sure, you get but it sees Aang at his most vulnerable as well. If you happen to die in this state, the Avatar is no more, adding more to his fears of ever using it. This might be another reason why he becomes more reserved than his Book 1 self. Losing control is something he can't afford to do, because he could lose himself altogether or hurt someone he cares about. This changes when he loses his oldest friend, Appa. This plot point devastates me every time I rewatch it.
I'm sorry, Appa.
The grief over losing his friend causes him into a fit of anger, blowing up at Toph and getting snappy with Katara. It all culminates when he loses control and slips into the Avatar state against some sandbenders, feeling guilty and ashamed for ever letting this happen in the first place. After his fit of rage, Aang feels it's best to shut out all of his emotions, in the process losing his own hope for moving forward. After seeing the beautiful gift of life, Aang learns to abandon the guilt and shame over losing Appa, sparking a new mission in finding his oldest friend again, which indeed happens. It's so nice to see them back together again. The final thing that Aang must master is the Avatar state, which he does by opening up the chakra energy within his body. The final step in mastering the Avatar state is for him to let go of his attachments, something that he can't do. Aang's attachment to the world is what gives him strength and hope. Telling him to let go will only further him away from inner balance and helping find harmony within the world. When he finally gives in to the idea, it leads him to getting struck down by Azula. In this moment of hesitation, Aang loses the battle at Ba Sing Se, but most importantly, a part of himself. All of Aang's past fears plague him at the start of Book 3. After the fall of the Earth Kingdom, the Avatar feels like he's failed everyone. He must reclaim his honor and put an end to this war. Instead of running away from his actions as he would do previously, he runs away to start a fight. The weight of the conclusion of the war on his shoulders, he thinks it's his burden to bear and his alone. In this moment of panic, Aang either goes back to his impulsive roots or becomes a ball of pent-up anxiety. It's understandable, the kid's 12 and has to make a moral decision that will change the world forever. Everyone he seems to ask advice on how to deal with the Fire Lord is like,
finish him!
Instead of thinking of a logical way of solving the problem. If Aang were to take the Fire Lord's life, it would end the war. However, it wouldn't put an end to the circle of violence. Finding a peaceful solution reinforces Aang's willingness to fight for humanity. It doesn't matter if you're good or bad or somewhere in between, Aang's philosophy is life is worth fighting for. Just like with Aang's other foes, the Fire Lord helps support his values. The one thing Ozai wants more than anything in the world is I'm sorry, I'll stop. With Sozin's comet, that's what he gets, setting the world ablaze to recreate it in his image. Aang has that same power to do so. He could use the Avatar state to carve the world in his vision if he really wanted to. Ozai is the imbalanced version of Aang, a version of Aang that lost sight of his attachments. Attachments are what help ground Aang and motivate him to keep going even when he fails. With the element of fire, that's what he learns, to find that inner drive within him to keep fighting even when it's hard. Despite all of the damage fire has caused throughout Aang's journey, seeing how the flames can bring redemption, in both his views on the element and Zuko as a whole. At the end of Book 3, Aang still has some work to be done in creating balance around the world, but he's fully embraced himself as the Avatar and will bring a level head into his role. Why is Aang's maturity so important? All throughout the early 2000s, boy characters had a similar persona. Jake Long, Ben Tennyson, even Timmy Turner enjoy using and sometimes abusing their powers, thinking later and punching now types of dudes. Granted, they were still fun to watch, but Aang broke that mold, becoming a character that can listen first and either talk it through before even throwing a punch. Or in his case, a gust of wind. Aang was different, showcasing that you can still be sensitive and kick butt at the same time. As a kid, I may have not understood Aang's character development, but as an adult, I'm glad Avatar: The Last Airbender's main character is the way he is. But that's just what I think about Aang's maturity. Please let me know what you think of him in the comments down below. I genuinely love hearing what you guys have to say. Also, we do a lot of Avatar content on this channel. If you don't want to miss out on these types of deep dives, then consider subscribing. If you want to learn more about Avatar Korra's maturity, then you can click right here to find out. Hope you guys have a lovely day, and I'll see you next time.